Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. Allow me to make a very simple argument and challenge me on it if I need to be challenged. Okay? As a business owner, what's holding you back from getting better results in your business is not the market, not the economy, not your team, not your clients, not LinkedIn, not what other platform you're playing on, not your positioning, not your messaging, not your pricing. Not that those things cannot be problematic or that they could not be obstacles that need to be overcome. But what's really holding you back from getting the results that you want to get is you don't have the skills required to get those results. To use a very simple metaphor, I recently started CrossFit. I don't know if I told you this.
You didn't.
I recently started CrossFit. It's a disaster. In any case, I cannot run for the life of me. Like, I'm not a runner. I can't run. It's painful. It's ugly. It's messy. Okay. So I go to like my second or third class, and in the warm up, they do a 400-meter run. And I'm like, oh, this is brutal. 400 meters is crazy to me. So I do it and I'm dead. Right. And then I find out that in the workout, they're doing 3 rounds of an 800-meter run. And just far more challenging than it should have been. But I'll get there, okay? The thing is, you know, when I'm running and I'm struggling to make that run, I could blame the weather. I could blame my shoes. I don't have good running shoes. I could blame the clothes that I'm wearing are uncomfortable. I could blame the coach for giving me an 800-meter run times 3 on my first, second or third class. I could blame the club that I joined for their programming. Like, there's all kinds of things I could externalize blame to and probably feel a lot better about myself in the process. But the reality is, I don't have the skills yet to execute an 800-meter run times 3. That's the truth of it. And I could dance around it all I want, but I'm not at that level. Maybe I could do a 400-meter run times 3, but not yet 800 meters. So what happened was, I would start the run, I would do half of it, and then maybe 3/4 of it. And then I end up walking some of it, taking little breaks here and there because I just couldn't handle it. I didn't have the skills. But I use that metaphor to describe what some business owners do when they're facing problems and challenges in their business. Your ability to solve the problems that your business is facing depends on your ability to pinpoint the root cause. And if you're externalizing blame to make yourself feel better, you're never going to find the root cause. And therefore, you're never going to solve the problem.
I'm so distracted right now. I'm having a hard time having this conversation because now I know you're a CrossFit bro and there's like a whole conversation to come out of that.
I'm not a CrossFit bro. So this is like CrossFit for old people. When I talk to them on the phone, I'm like, is this like a hardcore CrossFit kind of place? And like, no, like all of our clients are like over 40. No one's a CrossFit athlete. Yeah. We do it in a different way. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not a CrossFit guy. I'm like a CrossFit for old people kind of guy.
Okay, I'll set that aside. We'll have that
conversation. Even then, not doing it very well. But
we'll have that conversation outside of recording, or maybe inside of recording might be fun. But I think it's a great comparison because you can, I think everyone can relate. First of all, right? Everyone has been faced. I think maybe it's just me, right? Everyone's been faced with the physical thing that they can't do. And to your point, there are varying degrees of reaction. I'm sure you're going to see people just start to disappear, right? I'm sure that folks are going to come in and say, ugh, it's just too hard, right? That's the external blame scenario. That thing that I'm being asked to do is just too much, and therefore I won't do it. And if we take it back to business, exactly the same thing, right? How many people go out into the world, think it's going to be easy to launch a business? I'm just going to walk out and people are going to start, clamoring around me as I walk down the street because they are going to want what I have. And then they find out that that's not necessarily true. And the answer is, oh, well, it's too hard. I'm getting a job. I'm done. And so, regardless of where in that life where in your life you're seeing a skill gap, it's also probably interesting to recognize how you face these challenges as a human being, right? It does not shock me, Ahmed, that when you are faced with 3 times 800 meters, that your response is not, okay, that's it, it's too hard, I'm out of here. Your response is, all right, let's figure it out, right? It might take me the next 6, 8, 12, 20 sessions to be able to get to a place where that feels, I was going to say comfortable, but not terrible. Because that's the way that you face challenges, right? We know this about you, but it's also probable that there are other folks who are out there because of the way they grew up, their life experience, what they've had to face or not face, that don't necessarily take on challenges in that way, right? Don't see that for most of us, we can develop almost any skill we need if we decide it's a thing that we are interested in and decide that it's a thing that we're okay being bad at for a while.
Well, I think the key there is if it's a challenge that we choose to accept. So I could I'm not making this decision, but if I made the decision to say, you know what, this CrossFit stuff, like it's hard. True story. Like I am not used to my heart rate being that elevated for that long. It's very uncomfortable. For the past year, I've been like the lazy bear in the gym, right? Like I'll do my strength training stuff, but I won't let my heart rate get too high. I'll take nice long breaks in between sets. Like I'm not doing any hardcore conditioning. So having my heart rate elevated for, 30 minutes straight in a CrossFit class is very uncomfortable for me. It's good for me. Ultimately, it's why I'm there. But I could just as easily make the decision that, you know what, right now, like I'm in pain. My body hurts, right? I have to sleep more, recover. I'm tired the next day. Like I could say, you know what, this is not a sacrifice I'm willing to make right now. That's fine. Like that's a fair decision. I wouldn't judge myself for that decision. I'd have to go and find some other alternative, sure, right? But I wouldn't judge myself for that decision. In the same way, in your example, if somebody says, I went into business, I went into consulting thinking it'd be easier. And you know what? Then I got hit in the face with all these challenges I didn't expect. And I'm just not sure it's for me right now. So I'm going to go get a job. That's a choice. And I respect that choice. What I find problematic is where you say you want to be, obviously in the example here, you say you want to be in business. You say you want to be a consultant. You say you want it for the reasons you want it, but you're not willing to acquire the skills. You're not willing to endure the challenges. You're not willing to make the sacrifices and ultimately take ownership. Instead, you're externalizing blame. You're still in the game. Like you're still on the run, you're still on the run, but you're blaming everybody but yourself and not taking ownership and still running. I mean, to me, that's lose-lose. I'd rather you just, be honest with yourself and perhaps admit that you don't really want it as bad as you think you do and go do something else.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, if it's a conscious choice, then that's one thing, right? It's when you frame it as, oh, it just can't be done, right? That it becomes more problematic. And I think the reason that happens in business is one of the reasons, it's far less straightforward, right? If you're trying to figure out how to run 800 meters 3 times, I mean, you're trying to figure out a thing, right? Like it's a pretty specific skill that you're trying to build. And yes, there are a lot of different factors that go into your ability to do that or not. I think the challenge when you are trying to start and or grow a business is that it's harder to nail down what the thing is that needs to be solved, right? If all you know is that you don't have a big enough pipeline, that you have not connected with enough people, that you are not having enough sales conversations, if that's all you know, it's really hard to just keep plugging away because you don't know what to do, right? You know what to do, just run a little bit farther every time.
Yeah.
Probably be fine and maybe
Yeah.
get some new shoes. But being able to define that problem or find someone who can help you define that problem or, do the work to be able to at least prioritize which part of that problem you might want to try to solve first, that becomes something that can feel overwhelming, I think, and have people back off.
Yeah. My hope is, and this is certainly how I have felt throughout my journey in business, my hope is that seeing the problem as a skills problem is ultimately an empowering belief, because that can be solved for. I can't change the economy. I can't change where the market's at. I can't change LinkedIn's algorithm. I can't there's a lot of uncontrollables in business. And I think that's the thing, to your point, that makes it a very unique exercise, certainly more complicated than running 800 meters, is there's so many uncontrollables. And when there are so many uncontrollables, and this is a good rule of life, when there's so many uncontrollables, the thing that you can do that's most productive ultimately is identify what you can control and control it. That's how you mitigate the risk of the uncontrollables, is control what you can control. And what you can control as a business owner, among other things, but fundamentally, is your skills, your abilities, your capabilities, your mindset. I consider to be part of that. Your self-awareness, how you think, your mental skills, as well as your expertise, etc. Because I'll tell you this right now, the skills of a business owner that runs a $100,000 business are not the same as the skills of a business owner that runs a $500,000 business, are not the same as the skills of a business owner that runs $1 million business, are not the same as the skills of a business owner that runs a $10 million business. They have different skill sets. And those skill sets were acquired by growing to those levels. So not only do I think it's empowering for you to believe that your problem is ultimately a skills problem, but also the way to acquire the skills is to do the work, is to take action and to execute. And the other problem I see among a lot of folks is there's this bias to under execute, to underperform, to under action, if you will. And that's really where the skills are acquired, is through the implementation, through taking action, through failing, and through learning from failure. That's how you get the skills.
Yeah, and I want to just, really highlight that last point, because we also have to recognize when we're talking to our clients, for example, we're talking to high performers, right? Folks who have been successful, who are, highly skilled, who know something, right? And it's really hard to then move into a realm that they are not as quote unquote good at, right? Where the skill doesn't exist. And when you're later in your career and you've been successful for a long time, you forget that, when you were learning how to walk, you fell down a whole bunch of times, right? You smacked into the coffee table, you got a bunch of bumps and bruises, because that's the feedback. And starting to recognize that failure isn't failure, it's information, right? I went down this road, it wasn't the right road, I backed up, I tried something else. That's information. That's not a personal failing. That's not something that should, for any great length of time, knock you down. But I think it's a really challenging shift for a lot of folks who are at this point to make, because they've forgotten, right? They've forgotten what it's like. And so there's some real value in putting on your scientist hat. We talk about this a lot when we're talking to our clients, and treat the whole exercise more as an experiment, right? I'm going to try a thing, see if I'm good at it or not. Sometimes you may be right off the bat, who knows, right? I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to figure out what's missing. Is it because I didn't do it well? Is it because I wasn't doing quite the right thing? But not letting yourself get into some kind of downward spiral about how you tried a thing, you had the arrogance to assume that it was immediately going to work for you, only you, everyone else is working hard at it, right? But somehow you're the one for whom everything's going to be easy. And then when it's not, getting completely, dysregulated and basically not doing something productive beyond that point.
Yeah, it's a really good point you bring up, and I think just acknowledging that change in context is helpful on the journey, right? And here's the really common scenario that we see is you have somebody that's kind of risen to the top of the corporate ladder over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, or that built a really strong business and now is doing something else, doing something different. They're becoming a consultant, or they're changing their consulting business, going into a new market. Or another probably more common scenario is I've done really well with word of mouth and referrals in my warm network, and businesses come to me, and then it kind of stopped. And now I need to do something about it. In all of those scenarios, what you have is successful high performers who have done well and are used to doing well. Now all of a sudden forced in a way to, to have some humility and to learn some new skills that they don't currently have. And the humility that comes with that, and the failure that comes with that, and the learning that comes with that can be somewhat challenging to experience. I think you make it easier, to your point, Carrie, by just acknowledging this is a different context now. I did well in corporate. Now I'm a business owner. It's a different game. I got to learn the skills. I did well with my warm network and referrals. Now I'm going to the cold market. This is a different game. I got to learn the skills. Acknowledge you're playing a different game. And I think it makes it easier on your ego to understand I got to learn the skills of this game.